Hi everyone, Peter from Vancouver SEO company here. How are you? This month we're going to go through and we're trying something a little bit different. We're going through and doing a video newsletter just to sort of give you an idea of what it is that I look like and to remind you of what I look like, but also to go through and it's just trying to be more personable in a day and age where everything is just email and it's discarded or it's just read through so quickly, there's no personal touch to it. We're going through and we're trying to provide that personal touch. It gives you an idea of what it is to actually deal with us. Now I must apologise for the January newsletter. I have some sad news. We didn't release the January newsletter because we had to put my friend, my four-legged friend down. So consequently I wasn't really in the mood to go through and do it. So I let it slide, but I'm back again now. Big thanks to everyone who sent through their condolences. He was a great dog and he loved his time in Canada, even though it was only sort of 6 or 7 months, but he enjoyed it immensely, so thank you. Moving on. It's been an interesting start to the year for websites and search engine optimization. What we've seen is that there's been some changes just before Christmas, which Google released an update. That sent a bit of a shake through the system. What we found was that it was a little minor adjustment, so it's just keeping people honest. We found that it was not a major fear for most people, but we found there was a couple of people who had been putting stuff on the web that they shouldn't have, so copied content or going through and just doing strange things, breaking links and that sort of information. And we found that the broken links and items like that caused a problem, but we were able to go through and fix them up. Look, there's also been other updates which have rolled out. For example, we've seen that there's been new changes obviously to the website templates and everything that do come out. And we've also seen there's more and more talk of apps coming up in Canada, which is strange. It's a very, very good device and a good way of getting straight onto people's phones, which gives you a direct line to them, so you're not actually trying to deal with mobiles. So we're going through and we're developing apps now. What we're going to see is that the apps themselves are representative partially of the website, but also it gives the ability for you to actually have something on the client's phone, as I said. So you're bypassing any email preferences that these guys have. And by having an app on their phone, it gives you the ability to get straight to them. As you know, look, people leave us 3 things these days when they go out of the house: keys, wallet, phone. So they go through and that phone is consistently there with them. The phone is also known as the electronic leash where I come from, and look, the fact that people have it on them all the time and go into panic when they lose them, I'll let you know how much they are attached to these phones. So what we're going to go through and talk about briefly is the ability for your website to be found. That's one of the big things that we've noticed is changing. There's a lot more local search being conducted now, the way that Google's got everything set up. But what we're also seeing now is that it's also competitive. So there's people out there who are still going through and taking advantage of certain systems. But what we're starting to see now is that Google's slowly weeding them out. But it's in your interest to actually go through and start prepping yourself to actually start getting ahead of the competition. For example, making sure that you're releasing fresh original content, making sure that you're releasing videos just like this one, make sure that you're making an effort to update your website. Those basic elements will actually help you to go a long way. Plus also the fact that you need to make sure that your name, phone number and address is the same everywhere you go, across all they're called citations. And what it is, it's just how it is that Google sees you. If you've got 2 different addresses for the same place, it makes 2 different references. So you need to make sure that where you can, you've got the same address all the way across the web where possible. So the next thing we're going to talk about very quickly is the ability of networking to be incorporated into part of your website. Now we've seen, and I was just having a discussion just off our camera very early, that the ability for people to go through and have their websites all set up and active and doing what they should be doing, which is bringing clients to the door, is all well and good. What we're seeing now in the marketing world is there's a trend to actually look at blending the two. So the website still predominantly brings in and does the heavy lifting, as I call it, and it brings in about 80% of your clients. But there's also another 20% of your clients out there who don't know that you exist yet. So they're the ones who aren't looking for you particularly on the web. They're the ones who relate to you by going, oh, hang on, I've met you at a networking meeting somewhere, or you're talking to them about what it is that you do. You know, for example, we'll be talking to someone who might be doing maintenance appliance, as was the case yesterday, and they were telling us stories about how it is that the maintenance that needs to be done on the machines every 5 years. And I know, for example, I've got machines out there which need to go through and actually be serviced. So the ability to actually be able to get these people in front of you and talking about what they do will actually trigger something inside the client, and they'll actually go, yeah, look, I actually do need to do that, because I never would have searched for a maintenance person to go through and actually clean the underside of the machines and remove all the lint. So the same thing happens with your business. You know, people don't really know what they don't know, and so if they're thinking about going through and actually getting something done, then having you right in front of them reminds them that they want to get something done or perks their interest. So, you know, 20% of your clients can come from networking, which when you stop and think about it, the ability to get out there and network is super important. And it also then creates relationships and friendships along the way. So it has the benefit to go through and actually aid you in more than just business purely. So the next thing we're going to talk about, we're going to talk about broken windows. Broken windows was a post that I wrote about just recently, and that ties into New York City when Rudy Giuliani was the mayor of New York City. He went through and, with the help of his team, not just him, went through and they ran a series of tests on the New York subways. Now, the New York subways at the time when Giuliani was mayor was a notorious place. There's a lot of drugs, a lot of crime, violence, everything. It was like a whole underbelly, I suppose you'd probably describe it as. So what they did, they didn't try and tackle the major crime in bits and pieces first. What they did was they actually stopped and said, oh, let's take a look at what the broken windows are. And the first broken window they referenced was people were breaking the law by entering the subway system and not paying for their trips. You're talking 170,000 people a day not paying for trips, adds up reasonably quickly. So what they did was they went through and they put transit guards, policemen, and undercover plainclothes policemen just off after the turnstile. So as you've gone through, and then yeah, if you haven't got your ticket, they would go through and put you in handcuffs, and they just basically make a daisy chain out of people handcuffed together. And the fact they actually went through and they started at the grassroots level and said, right, this is what we're going to take care of first and foremost. They then found that started filtering down the line. So the major crimes, the assaults, shootings, etc., and all the drugs, all that started to disappear off the system. They started going through and cleaning the trains, both inside and outside, and so to get rid of graffiti and everything else. And what they found was that the transition from something so simple as just catching fare evaders then actually gave them the ability to go through and clean up the whole or parts of the subway at a time. Now, what he did then was he then took that above ground, and that lesson from the subway had been learnt and then applied to up top. So they went through and said, right, if you're jaywalking as an example, which is a minor thing, that's still breaking the law. So they said, look, we're going to give you a ticket for it. So they went ahead and they actually then proceeded to give out all these tickets for jaywalkers. And the idea was that if you cut out that basic crime where people think, oh, look, someone else is doing it, I can do it too, it goes through and actually raises the social standard up. So it goes from here to here. And with that social standard rising, and people stop and consider, okay, well, what's actually acceptable, what's not. And yeah, and it just changed the whole dynamic of what it was for New York City. They really improved it. It made big differences. And then they found that what it was that people were willing to socially accept changed. So the dynamic then changed. The processes that people went through then changed. You know, buildings, for example, and probably where the term broken windows would have come from. Buildings that had broken windows weren't left derelict. They were fixed up, the windows were repaired, things were made to look good. Yes, you still had issues still obviously floating around, but at the end of the day, it's that raising of that standard that lifts it above the problem areas and allows for the multitudes to actually basically take back over rather than the minority. So look, that's all I'm going to talk about. It's only a brief little newsletter, but look, I would like to say just a couple of things. First of all, this is a trial, so we are doing our best on it. Second of all, I really would like, if there's any feedback, look, please by all means do email me. Looking forward to hearing any feedback that you guys have. And lastly of all, I would like to say that I am going to be a little bit older next month. So yes, somewhere in the beginning of the month I'll be getting a little bit older. So hopefully, look, I'll get to see all you guys and basically go through and have a good time. And that will conclude our newsletter. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it. As I said, if you've got any questions, you can always go through and just email me, or you can call me on my phone, or you can go through to the website, which is www.vancouver-seo-company.com. Thanks very much, and I'll send you another video newsletter next month. Bye bye.